Kerala Governor Arif Mohammad Khan is likely to remove vice-chancellors of 11 state universities on any day in November second week if there is no court intervention before that. This is an unprecedented situation in Kerala, if not in India. In this video, we will break it down for you what is happening in Kerala. On October 22, the Supreme Court cancelled the appointment of Dr. Rajashree MS as the Vice-Chancellor of Kerala Technological University. The petitioner was Srijit PS, a former Dean of Cochin University and an aspirant for the Vice-Chancellorship. He submitted 3 objections. 1. The inclusion of Kerala Chief Secretary in the VC search committee. 2. Presence of representative from the Technical Education Council instead of University Grants Commission. And finally, the search committee's decision to unanimously recommend one name instead of proposing a panel. The High Court single bench and division bench had dismissed the pleas. However, the Supreme Court found merit in the argument that the search committee was bound to suggest at least 3 names to the Chancellor. But the court kept mum about the other 2 arguments of the petitioner. The Supreme Court quashed the High Court order and removed Dr. Rajashree from the post. The governor, who is also the chancellor of most of the state universities, had argued in the Supreme Court that the appointment of Rajashree was legal. He, being the appointing authority, obviously was not planning to tell the court that he made a mistake. But when the court delivered the verdict, the governor Arif Mohammad Khan became proactive and declared the order was applicable to all vice-chancellors in the state. He first sought the resignation of 9 vice-chancellors, alleging that UGC regulation was not followed in their appointments. The High Court immediately quashed it, stating he cannot simply do such things. But the court was fine with the show cause notices sent to these VCs by the governor. Next day, he sent notices to 2 more vice-chancellors. So, heads of 11 universities are facing the axe of the governor right now. Some argue that governor cannot sack the vice-chancellors as the Supreme Court verdict is applicable to only the VC of Technological University. Even if other vice-chancellors were appointed similarly, someone must challenge it in the court. Governor cannot assume that the verdict is applicable to all by default. The University Act allows the removal of the VC only for 2 reasons: fraud and misconduct, and moves to sack them for any other reason are against the State Act, they say. However, others ask if the governor should sit idly knowing that something is wrong. High Court Justice Devan Ramachandran also asked this question during the hearing of the plea challenging the governor's decision. However, this has to be heard in detail by the High Court. It will certainly take time before there is a final say in it. Former Lok Sabha Secretary General PDT Ajari says there are fundamental issues in the Supreme Court verdict against Rajashree. The court had clearly stated that UGC regulation is part of UGC Act and hence it is the paramount law. If there is a clash between the state and central legislations, Parliament will get the final say. Hence, the UGC regulations of 2010 and 2013, which talk about the VC appointments, are above state acts, court observed. Now, Ajari says regulations are not equal to acts passed by the Parliament since they are not sent for assent of the President of India. The regulations prepared by the executive cannot be held more powerful than the acts passed by the legislature. Since the UGC Act does not mention anything about VC appointment, the State Act should have the final say in it, he argues. Also, Ajari mentions that there has to be a harmonious interpretation of state and central laws if there are differences. He cites a previous Supreme Court order to support the argument. This will be resolved only by a higher bench in the Supreme Court if Rajashree moves an appeal. A 2013 Supreme Court verdict by a 3-member bench headed by then Chief Justice Altamas Kabir said that the state is not bound to accept or follow UGC regulations. I quote from the verdict penned by the Chief Justice. Education now being a List 3 subject, the state government is at liberty to frame its own laws relating to education in the state and is not therefore bound to accept or follow the regulations framed by the UGC, unquote. According to the 2013 update to the UGC regulations, vice-chancellor appointments can also be made in accordance with state laws, but the verdict against Rajashree has not elaborated on this. In the appeal, even if the court rules that appointment can be made according to state laws, Rajashree's case will not be much different. This is because the KTU Act of 2015 clearly states that The search committee shall unanimously recommend a panel of not less than 3 persons. If they cannot make a unanimous decision on 3 names, then each member of the panel can submit 1 name. Though it also states that non-submission of name by any member will not invalidate the appointment, Rajashree's case is different since the search committee unanimously recommended 1 name. However, in the appeal, if the court feels that appointments can be made according to the state law, 8 vice-chancellors can save their seat because the respective state laws allow the search committee to recommend 1 name, but they have another roadblock. In the aforesaid 2013 verdict, the court also had ruled that if states adopt UGC regulations, they have to abide by them. Kerala had accepted 2010 regulations in December that year. Kerala will also have to argue before the new bench in Supreme Court to clarify the statement. It is essential for the state to move an appeal since the verdict giving upper hand to UGC regulation will create several legal hurdles in future. If you are following what I have been saying, you must notice that this is the case of 9 vice-chancellors. There are 2 more VCs who received show cause notices. They were nominated by the government at the time of the establishment of the institutions as per convention. Governor says since the vacities have received UGC recognition, VC appointments have to be made afresh. This may lead to another lawsuit. Now, coming to what aided the governor to make such a move, well, there can only be a speculation about possible reasons. In the beginning of 2022, there were 2 controversies. One, Kerala University VC allegedly told Arif Mohammad Khan that the state is not keen to confer D.Litt on the former President of India as recommended by the governor. 2. The appointment of Kannur University VC Gopinath Ravindran. Governor alleged government interference in this. It may be noted that he made the allegation after the reappointment of Dr. Ravindran. This escalated gradually. Meanwhile, allegations of illegal selection of Priya Verghese, wife of a CPM leader, as Associate Professor of Kannur University gathered momentum. Knowing that the governor would become a headache soon, the government planned to change the format of the VC search committee. It wanted to have 5 members in the committee instead of 3 to give the state government an upper hand in it. Infuriated by this, Khan hastily constituted the search committee for the new vice-chancellor of Kerala University as the incumbent was about to retire. Kerala University blocked the move. Then the governor dismissed 15 Senate members for not attending a meeting. He even threatened to sack ministers as the verbal spat continued. So if we look further back, the first fight with the government happened 2 months after Khan took charge of Kerala. He faced protests during the inauguration of the History Congress in Kannur University in 2019. Participants and speakers challenged him for supporting the controversial Citizenship Amendment Act. Years later, he alleged conspiracy in those protests. He called renowned historian Irfan Habib a gunda. He also called the Kannur University VC a criminal because they allegedly heckled him. Remember that Irfan Habib was 89 when the incident happened. The government is now actively pursuing the idea of installing separate independent chancellors in the state universities. Earlier, the chief minister had dismissed reports of such a move. With the latest developments, it is highly likely that they will promulgate an ordinance soon. An angered Khan had earlier told the government in writing that he was willing to give up the post, but it is unpredictable. To conclude, let's say there are political differences between the governor and the government. Only the BJP is backing Khan. Opposition is happy in a way that the governor is taking on the government, but they haven't supported every move he has made. The final say will probably rest with the Supreme Court.